Tera tricks. What are Tera tricks? It's a phrase that I just completely made up, but I feel like it's something that you need to keep in mind with the new mechanic for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being Terastallization. What Terastallization does, it allows you to change your type defensively, and also in some cases, if it's not a type that you originally had, you gain a new stab, but if it's a type that you've already had, you get a additional boost on top of stab. But there are things that I think that we need to keep in mind as competitive players, which aren't going to be seen a whole lot, but could affect a matchup, and you might see it once on some kind of VGC stream where you go, wow, that is a really big brain play. What's going on, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm going to talk about just some little things about Terastallization, which could change a match here and there. Now, most people are saying that Terastallization is going to be more of an offensive one, where most people just want to Terastallize their Pokemon to a same type to get a stronger move overall, but there are a lot of defensive benefits to it. The one that everyone keeps talking about is Steel type Hydreigon, which gets rid of the 4x Fairy type weakness, and also with its ability Levitate, it does not have the ground weakness. So if you see the Steel typing here, takes 2 times the ground, so that leaves you with just a fire weakness and a fighting weakness. All those things Hydreigon can deal with pretty well, especially if Hydreigon still has earth power, which I don't see why it wouldn't. And then the one thing we talk about is ghost type Tyranitar being a rock and dark type. It has 7 weaknesses, one being a 4x a weakness to fighting. A lot of people think Tyranitar would be a good target for a ghost type Terastallization because you turn a 4x weakness into an immunity with the ghost typing. But there are some things that I want to talk about that I feel like could actually be used to play game 2 or game 3 really well if it's planned out that way. And the first one I want to talk about is the fire typing. Now, one thing we know about fire typing is that it's a pretty good offensive type and is kind of a crappy defensive typing here, and I feel like that's going to be the con for both of the first 2 things I talk about. But think about Landorus Therian. Landorus Therian in a Dynamax format had Intimidate, which weakened the offensive output of its opponents, and with Dynamax with Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Fly was a pretty good Dynamax Pokemon. Fly boosting its speed, Max Quake boosting its special defense. Now, Landorus does face a 4x weakness to Ice, which is Landorus is one weakness, but if you don't have an Ice type move on your team, one way that you really combated a Landorus and made sure that it didn't pick up too much momentum was burning it. So much that if you look at Pikalytics, let's do that now. If we go to Series 12 Pikalytics, which is the current format right now with Series 14 being out, Landorus's top 3 items were Life Orb to boost its attack, White Herb to prevent a stat being dropped like opposing Intimidate from an Incineroar our opposing Landorus, and Lumberry. Lumberry was on 16% because burning Landorus was a really good option here. And if you're looking at things that you could do that might be really cheeky for Landorus, is Terastallizing it to a fire type. Now, it doesn't get any fire moves, but you don't really have to worry about that with Tera Blast. And with Dynamax being gone, Fly isn't going to be used all that too often. So you could always run a Landorus Therian that has Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Tera Blast with Protector Swords Dance to deal with a potential burn. Now, that's not something you always want to do because you're still going to have that water weakness that comes with ground, and you actually become weaker to opposing Landorus's Earthquakes and Rock Slides. But I feel like if you're going against an Ice type or you're going against a potential burn, Terastallizing into a fire type might not be too bad. I would have to say the same thing for Zacian, but the biggest way to counter Zacian is with ground type moves, and Terastallizing into a fire type really doesn't help that at all. I feel like there'd probably be a lot better types to take advantage of Zacian. I think what one type that I thought of for Zacian is the fighting type because of Sacred Sword, but it's always something to be mindful of that you could Terastallize into a fire type to prevent burns. And the other one is Terastallizing into an ice type to prevent frostbite. We believe that frostbite is coming into the game with the drowsy status, and what frostbite is going to do is cut special attack in half. It's basically going to be a special attacking burn. So if you look at, I'm just thinking of big examples right here, Calyrex Shadow Rider, hard hitting Mon with its special attack. So getting its special attack dropped could be very detrimental to it gaining those boosts and getting those knockouts. So here, Terastallizing into a ghost type, into an ice type might not be too bad, but the one thing about ice type is that its defensive paralysis is really garbage. You become weak to a lot of common things. So Terastallizing into an ice type, I think most special attackers would rather take the special attack drop rather than Terastallizing into an ice type. But that's just two quick examples. Another thing I see here is that the steel type is going to become very popular for Terastallization. Hydreigon, as I said, was our main example. The one benefit that you also have to think of with Terastallization, and it's not something you see common in VGC or something you see in singles, is that steel types are immune to poison moves and toxic itself. So we don't really see setting up poison too much in VGC anymore, but with moves like Sludge Bomb or Poison Jab, like, you would know that your Hydreigon is immune to it, and if there was a move that was going to poison your Mon, you don't have to worry about that with Hydreigon. The next one is grass types. So I'm just going to bring Rillaboom up here because Rillaboom is really one of the big grass types of Sword and Shield. Same with Venusaur. But with grass typing, you avoid all powder moves. So if your opponent is trying to go for a cheeky sleep powder from their own Venusaur, you could always Terastallize into a grass type and be immune to the redirection, be immune to the rage powder, the stun spore, the sleep powder. I feel like that's something that you could keep in mind, especially if you're trying to shut down Trick Room. So if you have a taunt user that you're worried about a rage powder going through, you could have grass type Terastallization and maybe even a hooded cloak, and that covers for fake out and that covers for spore moves. So you in a way could have a way to effectively taunt any Pokemon turn one unless it gets one-shotted. The next thing I want to talk about is Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave was used a lot in Sword and Shield because a great way to deal with a Dynamax Mon is making sure that it didn't hit, or that you could knock it out before you hit. One of those things were Regieleki with speed control with Electro Webs, but there was also, where is my boy? Come on. Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl was a big user of Thunder Wave and Scary Face. Now, you would still have to deal with the Scary Face here in this situation, but if you Terastallize into an electric type, especially if you are a Pokemon like Rotom with Levitate, Rotom was our electric type, that's a bad example. Hydreigon once again has Levitate. We have the Latias and Latios, we have Giratina Origin Form. We have some decent Mons that don't want to be paralyzed here, mainly these two. But if you want to avoid being paralyzed by a Prankster, Grimmsnarl, or something like that, then Terastallizing into an electric type could actually be useful here. So we've covered most of the status conditions. I don't think there's no real way to prevent Drowsy through any typing besides whether it's a powder based move, which the grass typing would cover. But another thing I want to talk about is dark type. So dark type avoids and ignores all prankster style moves. So say you wanted to prevent a Scary Face and a Thunder Wave from a Grimmsnarl, you could always Terastallize into a dark type. Now, you do have to factor in with the team compositions with these kind of moves. You are going to change your weaknesses, and this might be beneficial, this might not be beneficial for the set or the team that you're facing. Think of your Choice Scarf Kyogre. Kyogre is one of those mons where you want to hit hard, hit first, with that rain being up and that Choice Scarf giving you a quicker water spout. You could always Terastallize into a dark type against an opposing Grimmsnarl to avoid that Thunder Wave, to avoid that Scary Face from Prankster. And if it's just something that, if there is a more predominant Thunder Wave user, you could always Terastallize into an electric type, which would cover Kyogre's electric type weakness really well. You wouldn't have that anymore with being an electric type. But yeah, that's going to be all for today's video. I just wanted to talk about how some of these typings do have more benefits other than their offensive and defensive capabilities, with fire types avoiding burn, ice types avoiding frostbite, grass types avoiding powder based moves, dark types avoiding prankster moves, and steel types avoiding poison type moves. But that's going to be all. Do you think any of these will actually be used in VGC? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this content, do not forget to like and subscribe. We're almost up to 1,000, hoping to get there before Scarlet and Violet comes out, which is, we're getting pretty close. So, you know, subscribe. But that's going to be all. Till next time, I'm Zach, and we'll see everyone later.